Why don't you share a little bit of your journey in how you became so into mastering energy and social dynamics?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And yeah, I know I do have a unique way of going about things, but I think it's really because when I first started to notice these subtle energy influences we have on each other, I was very young. I used to always have a knack for socializing, but there were so many things I could sense from other people when I'm in social settings or even one-on-one settings where I felt like there's a difference between what's going on the inside of what I sense from people and myself and what we uh, express on the outside. And that caused very curious and interesting experiences for me, but as well as painful experiences in my relationships and my social interactions. And I started to look at myself deeper, and everything kind of just came together. The more I became fascinated by these things, I was also in parallel on my self love journey, discovering myself more, healing myself, understanding myself. And then I started to just realize that it's all connected. Everything that we do on the outside or we experience on the outside comes from the inside. And it's related to a lot of the self love things and the spiritual things and even like mindset performance things you see on social media. But it's one of my goals to really bring very spiritual elements that we know of in life to make it very practical because I know that it's all interconnected. So, in a nutshell, that has been my journey, but there's so much more there.
Oh, definitely. So it's always been an innate curiosity and interest. What were the resources, or I guess, like, what inspired you the most in everything that you learned and talk about now?
If I were to summarize in one word as meditation, I get all of my answers through meditation. And there are tools that have helped me get into really deep meditations. I actually am an advocate for intentional usages of psychedelics. It has been a big part of my journey too. And meditating, using it intentionally and knowing what to do with it and knowing moderation and balance, it gave me so much answers and clarity to the questions I had with social interactions and also just who I am in this universe and what I'm doing. And again, I think a lot of people, if they meditate and, if they try modalities like psychedelics, they hit the same truths. They have similar experiences, but a lot of people have a hard time connecting these spiritual things that they experience to something being very practical. So that's why a lot of people, even though they have kind of a belief for it, it's still a belief. Like it's still a little bit woo woo, even if they feel like it's true. So that's why again I try to bring very spiritual elements, these spiritual answers I receive in meditation, and then I show it through physical examples. Like this is if you do this with one another, you sense it. And proof is in your own experience. So when people can take these concepts and principles and go out there and do it for themselves, that's their own proof. That's the best proof. They can see it in their own interactions and their own environment on how these things work.
Yeah. And when did you decide to start sharing this online? Like, did you have another career and then you decided to like shift it? Tell me a little bit about that background.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in the digital marketing space for over a decade. So I was always working corporate. And I mean, it's a long story, but I lived in Vancouver most of my life, but I moved to Toronto back in end of 2017. And this is why when I mentioned earlier that it's all interconnected, and that's why I'm so passionate about what I do. I know it's my purpose, is because when I look back, I see the miracle and the magic of how this universe works. Like everything that happened in my life, it was both intentional, yet it all just came together like it was always meant to be. Because at the time when I was working corporate and I made that huge shift and moved to Toronto, it was also when I was really starting to commit to my self love journey. And also when I was experiencing a lot of intense situations in my life, relationships, family. And it was also when I realized that I really didn't want to work corporate and I wanted to do something for myself. And I started with lifestyle and food blogging. At the same time, like I said, it was also when a lot of intense experiences were happening in my life. And that the pain made me go deeper into myself and really commit to my self love journey. And that was also when I started to meditate deeper and when I started to get these answers. And then I shifted from eventually when I came to Toronto, I started food blogging, lifestyle blogging, and I grew, a couple thousand followers. I started to test new content, these things I talk about now. And I made skits, and my initial viral video was actually through TikTok. I was just doing random skits on like how we can better interact with each other and kind of what I'm talking about now. But at that point, I wasn't even really sure about the root foundational things I talk about now. I was just kind of showing, okay, yeah, this is how you can better interact. And then people start to love it. And it made me look at the layers of what I'm talking about even deeper.
I love that. And I love how it all ties in together. Okay, so let's get into your teachings. I guess let's start with the basics, right? What is the foundation, like you said, the root of all of this social dynamics and energy?
The foundation, I think, is to really see that our energy is everything and to understand what energy is. And when I say energy, sometimes it's a little bit hard for people to grasp. But when you really feel into yourself and feel into what you sense in your social environments, like even right now, as we're talking, when we sense each other, what are we sensing? And what are we exuding? We're basically exuding a combination of how we're thinking, how we're feeling, what our intentions are. And intentions is just thoughts and emotions, but directed thoughts and emotions, and our physical state of being, how our body is feeling. And our body drives our thoughts and emotions too. It's this inner presence that we have. And obviously, that drives how we're perceived by others and how we perceive ourselves. So when you break it down, it's like a science. That's your energy, and you can do so much with it. And anything in the physical, because I think most people that follow me, they want to learn how to be confident. They want to learn how to be more soft or sharp and magnetic. So a lot of this obviously comes through our body language, our facial expressions, how we speak, how we deliver our words. But if you look at the roots of that, it's still first influenced by our inner energy, like our body language, our facial expressions, how we deliver. It comes through how we think, how we feel, and understanding the depths of the ways that we think and feel.
I get it. It all starts with the core of who we are and our presence, as you called it. And from there, that creates the rest of our response and the flow.
Yes.
You talk about this thing called inner and outer energy and the manifestations of like how we might feel inside and it shows on the outside. Can you go deeper into that?
Two key terms I use a lot in my content is superiority and inferiority. And these are what I like to call imbalances, meaning when we are feeling or thinking from an inferior place, like where an inferiority can manifest, like if I'm talking to you and I suddenly feel like maybe you're judging me or I'm not doing good enough, or I start to just overthink and I put myself lesser. If I'm thinking and feeling like that, then obviously the ways that I express myself, I'm going to hesitate, I'm going to stutter, I'm going to be passive, it's just going to manifest in everything, my expressions, my delivery, my body language, my facial expressions. At the same time, on the flip side, we can also get into superior states. And often superiority and inferiority, I don't even see it as a linear scale. It is a spectrum, but it could be both happening at the same time, because when we're acting superior, it's not about superiority. When I use it, it really is imbalance. It's not a good thing, because a good thing is knowing how to be confident without needing to force superiority, because superiority is whenever we feel like we need to prove ourselves, we need others to validate us, we need to use a lot of force in expressing ourselves, and that is actually masking insecurity, so inferiority. So I show people that these are just extreme ends of the spectrum. And so when we start to get to know ourselves deeply, then we start to see that we can express ourselves however we like. But to answer your question, if we on the outside in our expressions, we're going to the extremes of superiority or inferiority, we don't feel good on the inside. And we start to see that others perceive us in a way that we don't like too. So you can see that that is still stemming from our thoughts and emotions. If we start to force things or if we start to be passive, then that's what others will sense. So it's always a balance. And when you balance, it's not about you cannot go to places where you're very confident and you want to be, sassy or even have attitude, or you want to choose to give to others. You want to be compassionate. You can do whatever you want, but it's how far you go on these scales and knowing when it starts to not feel good. And instead of reacting or being unconscious about it, you learning how to pull yourself back in the moment, balance your energy, and always have this base of confidence, but in a way that's light.
It's so practical because everyone can relate to the times where they feel both. I would say, in my point of view, it's like mostly like inferior, where you like make yourself small. But
Yeah.
all of it is just energy. And I love how you say there's a correlation to if it doesn't make you feel good, you're not going to like how other people perceive it. But if you
Yeah.
feel good and the way you express yourself, you're more likely to, I don't know, come off in a better way.
Exactly. And that in itself, that is what I show people a lot. That is energy. That shows you that how you're thinking and feeling on the inside directly influences your experience on the outside. Because sometimes, I get comments on my content. People are like, just be yourself. Just be yourself. I'm like, yeah, bitch, I know. Just be yourself. I want you to be yourself. But
Yeah.
your compass, you can be whatever you want to be. I'm giving you guys these examples just to show you the energy nuances, the differences, but your compass is yourself. I know so many people, sometimes I'm on TikTok and I see families that are literally yelling at each other all day, but they're laughing about it too, because that's just how they naturally express themselves and they feel good about it, and they're not doing it in a way where they're actually hurting each other. So your compass is always in your own experience. It's always if you feel good or not.
Yep. I love that.